All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Mixed Martial Arts. My name is Austin Shaper. This is a show where we cover the topics of UAP, UFC, and World War III. This is going to be a UAP episode. I'm going to do my best to keep this one relatively short. This is going to be covering the hearing that is wrapping up right now as we speak. It's currently still live. I think they're wrapping up and got like another 20 minutes left, but I wanted to hop up on this episode real quick and kind of go over some of the bombshells that were dropped. And I got to do it quickly because my wife's going to kill me because this this hearing has gone on for like over 2 hours now, and we've got shit to do. So I paused it. I'm going to finish the closing of it when when I get a chance to later today, because I believe Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp both have statements that they submitted that the hearing is going to allow them to be able to give those statements, I think, in written form. So I'm definitely going to go back and finish it, but we've gotten through the gist of it. It was over 2 hours long. Amazing hearing. So much stuff to talk about. As usual, I'm going to try to keep it clear and concise. I may be all over the place because, good Lord, it was just a historic event. This is July 23rd, the first UFO hearing we've had in 55 years in the government. So obviously a big day, a mixed day, because the UFO community didn't know what to expect here. You know, what were we going to get? Was this going to be new stuff? Was this going to be the same old stuff, just rephrased? For the public to hear, because if you follow this phenomenon anywhere relatively closely as I do, you've already heard from the three witnesses thousands of times. Ryan Graves, the pilot, Commander David Fravor, the pilot from the Tic Tac incident 2004, and then you also have David Grush, who is the most recent whistleblower. These were the three witnesses today. And people didn't know what to expect, as we talked about in last week's episode. There was a lot of mixed reviews. Some people didn't feel that this was going to be a bombshell. I was a little bit on the pessimistic side, I have to be honest. I still woke up today extremely excited, like a kid on Christmas. And when we were watching the event, my heart was beating fast some of the times, which sounds lame, but it's just like such a big deal because you just don't know what to expect. We didn't think that this was going to be the day where, the government came out and showed us pictures of bodies or craft or anything like that. I think you were kind of crazy to expect something of that gravity. I even saw somebody post on Twitter. Hopefully this was a troll, but they posted on Twitter and said that they quit their job because today was disclosure day and there's no need to work if, they're going to drop the news about aliens. So that is hysterical. Hopefully that's not true, but there's some kooks who follow this phenomenon. Obviously, the crazies are definitely drawn to this. How could you not be, even if you're a sane person? But overall, I got to say, for the 90% of the hearing that I got to listen to, I believe it was a bit of both. There was a lot of testimony that was spot on with everything we've already heard, but there was also a lot of bombshells that were dropped and a lot of reading between the lines as well, where specifically David Grush, that's the testimony that we were the most excited for because he both knows the most about these programs, not just he had a particular encounter like Fravor did or Ryan Graves, but he knows a lot about the actual programs themselves and what the government is up to. So we were the most excited to hear from him, and boy, did he not disappoint. A lot of stuff he kind of gave us the old, we can talk about this in a closed session because the public can't hear it. As you guys know, probably don't have to go into this again, but if you don't know, the issue with his testimony, and we all knew this was going to be the case, is that he is not allowed to be giving classified information out in a public setting. So it really limits what he's allowed to say because he is very much so risking jail time if he comes out and says something that the public is not allowed to hear specifically. So there's a lot of tiptoeing around some points, but as I said, you could read between the lines on a lot of it, and we did learn some new information from him. Let's go over a few Twitter points and reactions, because there are a lot, plentiful reactions on Twitter today. This comes from Tiny Claus on Twitter. He says that Grush says under oath. Mind you, these guys were under oath. That is a big deal because we did not know if they were going to be or not. He says that Grush says under oath that the United States government has been aware of a non-human intelligence on this planet since the 1930s. You guys, if you did watch his News Nation interview, you've probably already heard that he mentioned the 1933 Italy crash where Mussolini's government got a hold of this craft, and this is the first documented case, I guess, from the Americans' perspective. And what was it, like 10 years later, they got a hold of the craft. And so, yeah, under oath in a public setting, he says the American government has known about these since the 1930s. That's pretty fucking profound. UFO Shane says he also said that people have been murdered, basically. Yeah, basically he said that. He couldn't say that verbatim, but word for word. But he did say he would talk about that in closed session, and he said that people he knows have been injured. People he directly knows have been injured by both directly a non-human intelligence and the government for knowing about or being involved in these incidents. Crazy, crazy. So another one from Tiny Claus. He says, Burchett asks what companies are involved. Grush says he has provided the names of the companies along with the departments within them to the intelligence committees. And Nuon Drift responds to that and says this is the rationale of Senator Schumer's NDAA amendment, where he talks about the fact that they want to be able to, the government not only wants eminent domain over any of these craft, but they also want to know the locations and a list of all the materials and, you know, a comprehensive list of everything they've been working on, all these private aerospace companies and, you know, military contractors, of which many people have speculated Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, and a plethora of others. Lockheed seems to be at the top of that list for people, but maybe that's just because we know Lockheed compared to some of the other ones. Also, Grush confirms companies are overcharging taxpayers for technology and funneling the extra money through IRAD, don't know what that is, to UFO reverse engineering programs. This was in response to him being asked how are they funding these ventures, how are they funding these programs without congressional oversight. And yeah, he basically says, I'll talk about specifics in a closed door setting, but that essentially they're funneling taxpayers' money, which means you and I, we may have shitty roads. If you live here in Cincinnati, I-75, they've been working on it for fucking 20 years and it's still terrible. But they're siphoning off millions, if not billions of dollars on a yearly basis to these programs without the American public's knowledge and without congressional oversight. That's a travesty. That's a crime against humanity in every regard. It's something that we all kind of thought, but again, to hear somebody this high up in the government, somebody who was making the presidential daily briefing, in David Grush, making it for the president, someone of this level of security clearance to come out under oath and say that he specifically knows they're siphoning taxpayers' money to be able to fund this is a powerful testimony, man, powerful. Chris French, 83, says, what a surprise, wasting taxpayers' money. Yep, 100%. Graves also, this comes from Ryan Graves, the pilot, not David Grush. He described a football field-sized red square, the size of a football field, sized red square that came from the ocean and hovered over Vandenberg Air Force Base for 45 seconds before shooting off and disappearing. He then said that there was further incidents later on that evening. This is a public case we've all heard about. I think it's a nuclear base, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a missile silo base, Vandenberg. And this is a pretty famous incident, but again, to hear this on the congressional record now for public testimony is powerful stuff, man. So he talked about that, of kind of a red object the size of a football field hovering over our missile silos. It's probably one of hundreds of, if not thousands of incidents maybe that have taken place over the years. We know so little about that because it's just so much speculation, but to be able to hear it in this setting is powerful, powerful stuff, man. And the debate that people are having, is this a managed disclosure? Is this hearing the start of a managed disclosure? Or is the government being dragged, kicking and screaming into this and they don't want this? It's kind of, you can see an argument for both sides, that this is part of a managed disclosure or that this is not what the government wants. And due to technology and the amount of whistleblowers and this new Whistleblower Protection Act, et cetera, that maybe they don't have a choice. I don't really have a dog in that fight because I just don't know. As I said, you can see an argument for both, but such a powerful hearing. And I just recommend, I'm going to try to link it in the description for those of you who missed the hearing. I'm not going to be able to cover all the details that were talked about, but I really recommend you watch the hearing. Put it on in the background at the gym or while you're at work or something, because it's a long one, over 2 hours, but powerful, powerful testimonies. Bearded Believer says, my jaw hit the floor when they started talking about that craft. Yeah, that was crazy, crazy. Jared Northup says, holy shit, that's new. It's not new. Vandenberg Air Force Base incident is... If you're in this community, if you follow these events over the years, we've all heard of that one. So it's not new. Maybe it's new to you, but welcome to the club, buddy. Crazy stuff. Lisa says misappropriation of funds. Wow. Yeah, wow, indeed. We knew that was happening. We just didn't really know how. And Grush said that there was, I believe he mentioned there's other ways that they're funding this too, which, I mean, that leaves us to believe black ops projects where maybe they're selling drugs, they're trafficking. Who knows what they're doing? Hopefully I don't get banned from YouTube for saying that. We shall see. I need to start posting my stuff more consistently to Rumble because I think I may irritate some of the powers that be if the YouTube algorithm picks up any of the crazy shit I'm talking about. We'll see about that. Jen says he doesn't know this. He said in the opening he has no personal knowledge that his testimony is based entirely on what was being told. That's in response to David Grush's testimony. But wrong. Hopefully you're watching this. Guess you didn't watch the whole thing, because they asked him, have you seen any craft? Have you seen any bodies? He says he has seen craft, and in regards to the bodies, he says he can't talk about, he said he hasn't seen any, witnessed them personally. And when they asked more about the craft, he said that he could talk about it in a closed setting, but he said that he has witnessed evidence. So that is firsthand testimony. That is not just him talking to other people in the government. That is him saying that he directly has had an experience where he has gotten to see some of this evidence. So incorrect, Jen. Sorry to burst your bubble. Thoreau E. Wellen says this was an important exchange, talking about David Grush. Yeah, definitely. A lot of important things were said. Paulo Samat says this could blow out a lot open. The very least, something is being covered up. Yeah, no shit, man. Something's big is being covered up. And, there's a lot of people who are pessimistic about this, and they say, there's such a lack of faith in the government that if the government's now coming out and talking about this stuff, well, now we can't believe them because, we can't trust anything the government says. I find that to be a simplistic view, and as I've said to several people about that who shared that opinion, the government's not just a hive mind. There's individuals within the government who possibly don't agree with the government and have the power and the authority and the security clearance and the credentials to be able to speak out and make a change. And things change over time. The past does not equal the future. The past doesn't equal the future. So just because this has been covered up by the government doesn't mean that everybody in the government wants that. And it also doesn't mean that it's forever going to be that way. You can't think that way. It's oversimplistic. These are nuanced, complicated topics. And the government is made up of individuals. And individuals have different beliefs, different moral compasses, and, obviously different levels of clearances in the government, people who have access to this stuff and maybe don't feel right hiding it. So I think it's oversimplistic to say one way or the other. We just don't know. That's why it's important, if you follow this stuff, to be open-minded, to not act like you're a know-it-all. And that's something I always like to say. I am not an authority on this. I know nothing about anything. I am just fascinated by the phenomenon as a whole. I think the only thing you can say for certain is that the phenomenon is real. We just don't know what that is, and we're trying to get answers on that. And before I forget it, if you guys are enjoying this content and you like talking about UFC, UAP, World War III, any of those, do me a favor and go ahead and subscribe to the video. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Click like on the video. If you're listening on podcasts, just click follow and leave me a 5-star review. That'd be very helpful. And lastly, if you guys like talking about this stuff and you like having a back and forth, you like sharing breaking news, you like asking questions and just having buddies who kind of share the same interest as you, I created a Discord channel called Mixed Martial Arts. You can find it in the description in this video. Go ahead and follow it. The group is growing slowly but surely, and we just like to talk about this stuff every day. And as it grows, we're going to be able to do live chats and, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So as much as I love doing a monologue, I like hearing other people's ideas. So go ahead and join that Discord. I would greatly appreciate it. Moving along, so much to talk about. Some crazy points that I wanted to talk about are that Grush said specifically that he knows people personally that have been injured. I think they asked if they'd been murdered, but he didn't want to answer that directly. He said he could talk about it in closed session. But he said he knows specifically if people have been injured by a non-human intelligence, by the government because of their involvement with a non-human intelligence, and people in the legacy programs who have been working on a non-human intelligence have also been injured and or killed because of what they were working on. They tried to ask more specifics. Burchett did. He tried to ask, was this a radioactive incident? Was it something like Havana syndrome? What were the specifics to this injuries? And he said, flat out, he couldn't talk about that, which is fair. A lot of people don't believe him because he can't testify it, and they say, nothing new. He's just saying, I can't talk about it. I'm tired of repeating this, but I will repeat it again. He can't talk about things that are going to get him sent to jail. He's walking a very tight rope, and that's not a reason to doubt him and say, he doesn't know that. That's why he says, we'll talk about it at a later time. It's because he doesn't have the ability. You have to have a certain security clearance to be able to discuss this, and you can't just say everything to the public and not suffer any reprisal or criminal culpability. It's not possible, man. So you're barking up the wrong tree when you get mad at Grush for not being able to say those things. The problem lies in the level of security clearance that's required to hear them, and the fact that the government loves to make everything national security related so that they can inherently classify and overclassify absolutely everything. leads to the argument, should this be classified, should it not? Is this national security? Is it not? I think it's a bit of both. It is absolutely national security, but it's also not fair for them to hide this. Whether it's national security or not, they have no right to hide something that could be shattering our entire paradigm and our existence here on this planet. It would change as we know it. So I don't blame Grush one little bit for not being able to talk about this stuff. It ain't his fault. It's just not. We would love to be able to get the full scope of it, and this is just the first hearing. I think they're trying to do another one in September, and they even asked for a list of witnesses, and David Grush said he'd be willing to give a list of both willing and hostile witnesses who work inside of these programs and the heads of government who are aware of these programs. So we're making progress, guys. We're making freaking progress, fellow Martians. We really are. It's not the level of progress we want or at the speed we want, but progress is progress. So at the end of the day, I was a little pessimistic about all this, but after seeing the majority of this hearing, of which I'm going to finish it later, I'm optimistic, man. I'm optimistic that there's good people in the government, and nobody distrusts the government more than me. I'll tell you that. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. But I do also have to admit that the government is not a hive mind. There's individuals with different opinions on this. And now it seems like a lot of the people who are powerful and have the ability to talk about this are doing just that. Not everybody agrees that this needs to be kept secret, whether in the government or not. It's powerful to be able to hear congressmen and senators and pilots and Navy commanders all come out and say, something's obviously being covered up. We've seen this stuff firsthand, and it doesn't match up with anything that we have or have had or will have anytime soon. Therefore, that leaves a couple possibilities. Foreign adversaries, of which they said there's no fucking way that the foreign adversaries have this tech, because if they did, they would have already used it. Russia would have used it in Ukraine. China would have used it on Taiwan or America. And America would have used it too if they had it. So they may be reverse engineering stuff, but are all these craft that have been spotted a result of the American government or some other foreign adversary? 100% no. I can say with 100% certainty. Maybe a certain percentage, maybe a large majority. All of them, no. And even if they were, where'd they get them from? It leads you to the same point. There's some sort of non-human intelligence here, whether it's extraterrestrial, whether it's what else did you say? Interdimensional, whatever. Are they living inside the Earth? Are they living from a different dimension, time period? We don't fucking know. We're trying to get answers, man. But overall, the hearing is a must-watch. You got to go back and check it out. Just a lot of bombshells, a lot of good questions. A few of the speakers kind of wasted their time, and it's like they don't fucking listen. They ask the same questions. One guy would ask, and then they'd go right back and ask another speaker would come out, and he'd ask, for example, David Fravor, the same stupid questions. Was it a nice day outside? Was it cloudy? It's like, dude, you've got 5 minutes, and you're asking about the fucking weather in 2004, you moron. Ask the real questions. I think the biggest takeaways that we can say from the hearing are a few. Grush says that people have been injured. People he knows personally have been injured and possibly killed. He didn't really want to get into the details on the killing or on the possible murders. But people have definitely been injured by non-human intelligence. They've been injured by the government for wanting to be involved and or talking about this non-human intelligence. The government is siphoning money from the American taxpayers through lying on their budgets, and we know that they fail their what's it called? Someone here can put in the comments if they remember the name of it. The auditing, the budget auditing they do every year for the federal government, and they're always like over $1 billion off. So if you guys are $6 off when you report your your taxes at the end of the year, you get a nice charge, and if you're thousands off, you may go to jail. But the government here can be billions off, and no. That's okay. Let's not talk about it. So lovely. Rules for thee, not for me, would be the way the government operates. But so bombshell that he admitted that the taxpayers are getting their money siphoned away from them, and that's one of the ways they're funding these programs. A lot of stuff, man. A lot of breaking news today. It was a bit of both, and that was to be expected. We were going to hear some old stuff, which is still good for the public who has never even heard of David Fravor or Ryan Graves or David Grush. So there's a lot of catching up that had to be done from the public's perspective. And also, for those of you who've been following the subject for a while, there was a lot of good updates for us. A lot of good updates, man. I think there's reason to be optimistic, and I think this was the opening of the floodgate. And is this going to lead to a managed disclosure, or is it going to lead to just the government being dragged into the light? Don't know, but at the end of the day, we just want answers, and whatever the motive is behind these congressmen and senators and whatever their motive is, I don't particularly care. Because at the end of the day, I just want to hear what's going on. I want to hear the truth of it to the best of the knowledge they have it. And it may not be the fact that the government knows everything. They may know a small piece of the puzzle, but the human race has a right, regardless of what it may mean, of the implications, of which the implications could be scary. It could change society. It could make things worse. I openly admit that. It could be dangerous. It could be depressing. It could be disheartening. And I don't care. At the end of the day, so many people have spotted these. I myself have had 2 sightings over the course of my lifetime. And yeah, the phenomenon is real, so they have no right to keep it from us. It's that fucking simple. They have no right, and whatever the motives are for why we're getting to learn more about it now, I don't particularly care. Just tell us. The politicians are gonna be politicians, man. They're gonna have their motives, and they're probably not gonna be authentic with us. Fuck it. We just need answers. So crazy times. I'm excited to see what the next hearing is going to bring. Maybe I'll give another update when I finish this last 20 minutes or so of the hearing, but I just wanted, like I said, my wife's going to kill me and we got shit to do today, so I had to come on this episode and do it quickly. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any thoughts or comments or questions on it, either join the Discord or feel free to comment on the video. As I said, subscribe to the YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 5-star review, and join the Discord in the description. And we're just joining a little community. Starting a little community, I guess you could say, of people who are interested in this. Maybe you like UFC and you don't care about UAPs. Maybe you like World War III geopolitical news. Whatever it is, it's a fun little group. I'm having fun interacting with everybody and kind of getting everybody's perspectives on all these crazy events happening, man. Overall, end of the day, my final take, this was a good day. This was a good hearing. A lot of breakthroughs, and we'll have to see how much the mainstream covers that. I guess that is the last factor we have yet to see. We'll have to see if CNN, Fox News, the usual legacy media, of which people don't believe, but still somehow the legitimacy remains when a story makes it onto the front page of the front of their websites. It does hit home for a lot of the casuals who don't follow this stuff. So although I don't think people really trust the mainstream media, there is a lingering credibility that they do have. Whereas if these stories kind of stay on News Nation alone and they don't make it to the old heavy hitters of the news, I guess you could say, and MSNBC and Fox and CNN and all these guys, then the story doesn't hit home with the casual audience who isn't sitting there watching these live hearings like you and me are. So that's the last factor to be determined, is if it hits the mainstream in a public way. I'll have to check Twitter, check the news, and see how much these guys are covering it. But at the end of the day, we've got to be optimistic, man. Head up, chin up. This was a good day. This was a great hearing. It's the first of many to come. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, and if I missed any revelations, feel free to share them with me. There was a lot of testimony. I'm sure I skipped over it. There's just so much to talk about. It's a bit overwhelming when you get 2 hours of testimony from 3 witnesses. You're bound to miss a couple things. But overall, non-human intelligence is here. The government knows about it. They've known about it since at least the 30s. People have been killed or injured because of it. The government is siphoning taxpayers' money. And that's all fucking real. And what it is, we don't know. Grush even said he hesitates to call it alien because he doesn't want to limit any possibilities of what it could be. It's non-human intelligence. It's that simple. It's not simple, but it's that simple to put it in that sort of category. You categorize it as non-human intelligence because it's not human and we don't know what the fuck it is. Is it alien? In a way, probably. Is it from another galaxy or solar system? Maybe not. Could be living in the Earth's crust. We don't fucking know. We've seen these damn things go in the water countless times. We've heard so many testimonies of them coming from space, from the sky, and through the water. So these things could be from a multitude of places, or they could be multiple species. We just don't know. I think there's reason to be optimistic. I'm keeping my head up on this. A lot of people I talk to are still discouraged. They think that we're never getting answers, that this is all a distraction. As I talked about in the last episode, I think that everything in the world happening, largely geopolitically, domestically, is a distraction from this phenomenon, because this has the ability to change the paradigms of the entire world, restructure our society, restructure the powers that be and how they're able to control the masses. If we find out that they're not the top dog, they're not top of the food chain, it really opens up the floodgate to a change in society that's probably very well needed. I don't know if things would change for the better or for the worse by the revelation of this non-human intelligence. It could be for the worse. It really could be. Could be negative news, but at the same time, as I mentioned, it's not up to them to gatekeep that for us, even if they're so, quote-unquote, trying to protect us. That's not their job to cover up something that could change humanity to that degree. And, is it good or bad? I don't know. Do we want the truth? Do we deserve the truth? 1,000%, and that's why I will continue to put out this news as I come across it, and I will continue to ask the hard questions and to talk with you guys, those fellow people out there in the world who are fascinated by this subject and who just want answers. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I believe I'm going to be doing another guest episode tomorrow on the upcoming UFC pay-per-view, so stay tuned for that. I love you guys. Give me a follow if you enjoyed the content, and we'll talk soon. Peace out, y'all. Have a good day.